Hi there, it's Kelly from Quilting Co. Just want to go over a little quilt that I'm working on tonight. I think some of you saw me piecing it the other day on Instagram and Facebook, but it's a super cute quilt. Just something little. I wanted to work on my Juki. I'm going to be hanging it in my sewing room. Just something to add a little bit of color to the walls. But the neat thing I liked about this fabric is, if you can see, it's got all these little bobbins and buttons and such. So I'm going to use that throughout the quilt. So I'm going to start by quilting the center of this block to look like the top of a bobbin. And for that, I will be using two of my rulers. I've got Gemini here with the sticky tape on the back that I've attached, that I always use when I'm using my domestic machine. And I'm going to be using Cheesy as well. Now, it's really important with the sticky tape on here because you're moving the ruler with the quilt. A lot of times on my long arm, I've shown you a video of that before, I don't use the sticky tape if I'm using a lot of straight line quilting and want to move the ruler around. But in this case, I always make sure that I use my sticky tape that comes with all of our rulers. So what I want to do is, I've already brought up my bobbin thread here. So I know roughly where I want to be. I want to be in the center of this block. So I know that I have to take a few stitches ahead. So I make sure my foot's down. I like to start with my needle down, just because I find it's a good place for me to keep myself positioned. Now, the advantage to Gemini and Cheesy as well is they also have a straight edge on the side. So you can use that just to keep you straight when you're free motion quilting, or you're starting with your ruler work, to keep you stitching straight in the ditch. About a few stitches, and you'll notice that my color is changing on my thread. I seem to be quite liking the variegated thread, so again, I've chosen to use that in lighter shades than I did on the star block quilt that I just finished. So then I'm going to lift up my foot, and I'm going to slide my ruler underneath, and I've decided on this one that I want to use the 2-inch in the center of this. Now, I put my ruler foot back down, and there's lines that are on the side of the ruler, and there's also registration lines here on the ruler. So I want those to match up to the lines that are in my block, so that I make sure that I'm in the center of that block. So I'm going to just hold this, and I'm going to come down a little bit further. Now, I'm not using it as a straight edge, and I want to make sure my ruler's out of the way, but I know roughly now how far I want to go. So I'm just going to move the quilt ever so slowly, take a few stitches, and then check again to see where I am. And if you overshoot, which I've done here, there's nothing wrong with moving your ruler back a bit and taking 1 or 2 stitches back and then checking again. So if you look here, these lines, hopefully this shows up, these lines here are on the seam of my quilt, and these lines here are on the seam of my quilt. So I know that when I do a circle, I'm going to end up, now of course this is accounting for my piecing being correct, but this is going to give me a nice circle in the center of that block. So then you just go ahead and do your move your quilt around your foot around your ruler, making sure you're holding your ruler all the way around, otherwise it'll end up not being straight. Like I said, I'm using variegated thread, so it looks a little bit different to the camera. Now, I've decided that I want to do a smaller one inside that, so I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to take it off, and then I'm going to take Cheesy, and I think I want to do, not one smaller than that. Let's do this one. Let's do a 3/4 inch circle inside that. Now remember, when you look at this circle looks fairly large, but you're going to actually be 1/2 inch smaller than the circle that you see, because you've got your ruler foot that's been compensated already. So when this says 3/4 inch, this finished circle you're going to have is actually going to be 3/4 inch. So again, we're going to take a few stitches down, and I'm going to line up my lines again. I'm not quite there, so I'm going to move my ruler back a bit. A couple more stitches, and I look pretty good there. So I'm going to take 1/2 stitch back, just so that I'm up tight against the ruler. Again, this is really important to make sure that you're using the right ruler for your ruler foot. And then just go around in a circle again. And then I'm just going to cut my thread there so I can show you. So you can see that that gives you a circle within a circle, nicely centered in that block. So that's about it for now. I am going to carry on and do the rest of the centers on this, and tomorrow I will do a video on what I plan to do in the rest of the blocks. Have a great night, everyone.